Hello and good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining me for today's session. Today's session is about how to pursue marketing alliances that can unlock growth. So, here's a quick summary of what we'll be covering in today's session. The first part that we'll be covering in today's session is about, what marketing alliances are and why are they more important now than ever, which is the reason for this workshop or session. The second part is how we can as marketers create meaningful alliances for different brand objectives, and this comes in from a very basic sense of understanding that there are different kind of brand objectives that we that different people and different brands go for, and thus we are trying to segment how you can create meaningful marketing alliances for these different brand objectives. And the third part of the session will be around the key insights that I've gathered over my experience in the last 8.5 years around what are some of the things that will work for creating great partnerships versus some of the things that we can rather avoid while trying to build alliances, right? um, Before we begin with the session, for some of you who would be joining us for the very first time, I would like to introduce and tell you a bit about Kraftshala. So, Kraftshala is India's premier marketing and sales training platform. It is created from a practitioner's perspective. We've tried to gather a lot of industry-driven content, and that helps solve the real-world problem. And created a program out of it for different people to learn and become the marketing and sales leader of tomorrow. With that said, we also have a program which is called the Professional Brand Management Program in the Digital Age, which is now open for people to apply, and people who are looking for roles in as managers or senior managers. It could be a fantastic program for them. Cool. So starting with the topic, what are marketing alliances and why are they more important than ever? Let's look at the background of what's happening in today's world with different kind of categories, right? So let's start with the categories and competition. So we've divided this into two buckets. One is the established category, and one is some of the new categories that are appearing with with the innovation that they're doing. So with the established category, let's say a sport apparel brand or a sport shoes brand, what you'd see is like until the last decade, there would be like key brands such as Nike, Adidas, or Reebok, that had the most share in the market, right? And that would dominate the market. But what started to happen is brands that have existed outside of India for a very long time, like Skechers, New Balance, Under Armour, even Onitsuka, have come into the market, and they're trying to craft their own kind of niche, right? Similarly, there are other Indian brands like HRX, Cult, and Proline that have entered the category as new brands. So a lot of competition there, right? Similarly, for new categories that have come up with new products that have broken barriers in terms of how a service was consumed. For example, taking categories such as online gaming category, like let's say a Dream 11, right? When it was launched, it was maybe one of the few brands that was out there, but and it created a category for itself. But look at some of the players that are existing in that category, like MPL, Hala Play, My 11 Circle, Ballebazi, all trying to gain the share of mind of consumer, right? So this is the kind of reality that we are in. And why is that happening, right? So the reason is that there's a lot of new brands that are emerging, and they have great ambition, right? So within existing categories, they're trying to identify either their own niche or trying to create that kind of a niche for themselves, or they're trying to disrupt the market and trying to create a new category for themselves, and they'll soon see a lot of competitors who see worth in that market and then follow the suit, right? The second part of it is that we are currently living in a super connected digital ecosystem, right? What that means is to discover products, to know more about a product, or even to chance upon something that I might be interested in, is extremely easier now than before, right? because of the super connected digital ecosystem that we live in, right? You see an Instagram, you're scrolling through your Instagram um, timeline, and then you suddenly see something, and then you get interested in it, and then you start reading about it. So it is a very digitally connected ecosystem that enables that these kind of new ambitions and brands to thrive. And as a result of that, what is happening is that there is a birth of a lot of cluttered categories, right? So there is a lot of communication that is coming from different brands, right? um, what are the repercussions of something like this, right? While for the consumers this is a very very happy kind of a scenario, because you are now exposed to all these different kind of choices that are brought in front of you, and often because of this competition, you get a better value at the product, like monetarily or otherwise as well, right? So consumers are happy, but a fair depiction of what's happening with the marketeers is that it's getting them worried, right? Because there's a lot of challenges that are being presented in front of a marketer, right? So let's see what some of those active challenges are, right? One is establishing or guarding the unique brand positioning. Let's say that there's a brand that had a very strong unique brand positioning because it was the only brand that was talking about that something that it thought it was clearly identifying mind space of the consumer with. But if other brands see that there's opportunity there, and they could still, and it's starting to happen, right? The other, like, a lot of brands have started talking about the same thing, right? So guarding a unique brand proposition has become difficult, and at the same point in time, for a new brand that comes in to create that has also become difficult, right? The second point is building or growing brand affinity. Getting that love from the consumers or building that kind of affinity is another challenge that this scenario has presented. The third part is, which is also very crucial, is gaining consumer trust. And why this is happening is because most of the consumers that are consuming products and services today are millennials and Gen Z, right? And with given that audience, the believability in terms of the communication that the brand throws at them is not as high. So that is one of the reasons that if you want to really gain consumers trust, you need to walk that extra mile, you need to walk the talk, right? And then only will you be able to get that kind of a consumer trust, right? And the fourth part of it is, which is I think the foremost important part, or rather the foremost important challenge, is that challenging the market leader, right? While most of the categories are cluttered, there there are usually market leaders in most of these categories. And what that does is, let's say if you're doing a brand penetration campaign, then what happens is, you would need to fight hard against the market leader. Or if you're doing a category penetration campaign, which is someone who may not be using that category right now, but if you want to get more users to use your brand and enter in the category, then disproportionately what ends up happening is that that new consumer is also likely to because of the connected digital ecosystem, again search about who the market leader is, or who's the most kind of popular player, right? And then that kind of a market leader is also likely to acquire the consumer that you are trying to bring in for your brand. So thus challenging the market leader has become a rather difficult kind of a ask for a lot of marketers, right? So these are some of the challenges that are present for the marketers today. Now let's talk about how do we solve for these challenges, right? One is a very clear approach of the traditional approach of solving for these challenges by using advertisement as an option, right? So you say you lack trust, or you say you want to gain prominence in someone's head by pushing your proposition forward, then you create an ad for it, right? Which is something that people can do. But the key for unlocking success, I feel, in today's time is marketing alliances, right? And why I say that is because of all the things that we talked about. The consumer is different. than who it was yesterday. Believability quotient needs to be really challenged if you're trying to communicate something. The ecosystem is different. The consumer doesn't only wait for you to share information. The consumer can get information if he wants to, through the digital kind of ecosystem that exists today. And there's a lot of communication going out. So how do you break that kind of a clutter and create that mind space, which is also very different. So creating that kind of a differentiation in communication also. So that's why I feel that, given all of these changes and the reality of a lot of categories today, I think, if someone can use marketing alliances well for what their brand objectives are, then it can be the key to a brand success. Because we also know that a lot of new brands are emerging right now, right? And not every brand has the same equal opportunity in terms of budgets or resources, right? So there's always that constraint, but the ambition is high. So if you rather can create a proposition with a partner, then nothing like it. Cool. So as we progress with this session, I wanted to also be sure that we be on the same page with what I mean by marketing alliances. For this session, what is let's term marketing alliances for now, right? So what is a marketing alliance? A marketing alliance is an alliance between a brand with one or more brands. So it doesn't have to be just one brand partnering with one other brand. It could be a brand partnering with people, publishers, or organizations, so influencers also. So that could also be a partnership, right? Who have come together to jointly promote a product, service, or a concept, or even a cause, right? So it doesn't need to be product promotion always. And the third thing is that which creates a mutual benefit for all stakeholders. So it's not a marketing alliance is not something that you pay. It's not like an ad buy in my definition. It is not like an ad buy or an innovative kind of a media buy that you do, but it is that kind of creating that kind of mutual benefit for all the stakeholders that have entered into the partnership to create that kind of an differentiated experience, or a better value, so to say, for their consumers, right? So this is so just wanted to lay that out before we move forward, right? Cool. Let's understand this also with some quick examples. So, like Red Bull and GoPro, classic brands, also very clear in terms of, the kind of consumers that they go after. Combined strength increases if they come together. Two organization, come together to promote their products. Another example is PNG and National Breast Care Foundation when they came together to raise awareness about a cause, which was early detection of breast cancer in women. And the third one is when brands and influencers come together. So brand and people come together for crafting an experience. This is when Airbnb partnered, and Shantanu and Nikhil partnered with Airbnb to craft a experience which was around the journey of a couture. So how a couture is formed, how do you make clothes to create that kind of an experience that interests the users with something that is truly authentic, right? Um, so with this, what we've tried to do is, while we have laid out the definition of what a marketing alliance is, and why they are important, and what they could look like, let's try and now get to the important part of the discussion in the session today, right? Which is like, how do we or how can all of us create marketing alliances for different brand objectives? And let's discuss this bit right now, the different objectives bit, right? So we all know that anything that we do as marketers starts with some kind of a business goal, right? So that business goal leads into a marketing objective, which is clearly defined, and that marketing objective leads into a marketing strategy, right? Is Which is essentially how you're trying to achieve that objective, and that marketing alliance should be a part of that marketing strategy. uh, what we are trying to say is that marketing alliances should not be looked at as that kind of a silver bullet that kind of execute, and that solves for the entire thing, or it's disconnected with your entire marketing strategy. However, what I'm saying is that marketing alliances should be a key part of your marketing strategy. for whatever it is that your marketing objective is, and then it should go on to contribute for you to help achieve that kind of a marketing objective, right? So thus we say that marketing alliances should be closely linked with what your marketing objective is. And for the discussion today, what we are trying to do is we are trying to break down some of the most common marketing objectives by the consumer funnel, right? So marketing objectives could be linked to raising awareness for a brand, or influencing consideration for your brand, increasing purchase for your brand, or building in more loyalty in your consumers. So with the how part on how to create marketing alliances, we link it also closely with how you can actually influence some of these different parts of the consumer funnel to meet your marketing objective. Yeah. Cool. So the first part of the discussion now, or for the first part here, is awareness, right? So if awareness is one of the marketing objectives that you're going after, then we know that reach and impact are crucial, right? Because the more the reach, the more people that you'd reach out to, and similarly, it is the greater the kind of impact that you would be able to create. But how do you reach out to more people, and how do you create that kind of a greater impact, right? So the first point here is that if you target the biggest player in that category with new reach, then you'd be able to prioritize reach, right? What I essentially mean is that if you as a brand in a separate category want to partner with some other player in a different category, right? And if you have that kind of an option to work with different players, right? Always prioritize. If awareness is the objective, then always prioritize with someone who has the biggest new reach. And what we mean by new reach is basically understanding what percentage of their consumer or community base would be aware about your product, or what percentage of their community base will not be aware, and thus prioritize someone who will have the highest reach for you, right? So that's what we mean by the biggest player in that category. And the second part is targeting impactful message delivery in new formats. What is crucial for us to know is that because some of the methods of message delivery have been consistent for a while, so the registry of those messages may not be high. Also, what we also understand is an impression is very different from a reach. So for us to be able to create that kind of a slight impact that actually creates awareness for your brand, it has to be served in a different format, right? So if you can serve your messaging, your message delivery in a different format, then that is the kind of impact that you could create, right? So that is the second portion. Let's understand this better with an example. So let's watch this.
Alexa, good morning.
Good morning and happy birthday to Boa Singh. The hero of the movie Zero is celebrating his big day and his one wish was to spend it with me. Sorry, Afia and Babita. Sure, I'll let him say hi to you.
नमस्कार, हमारे जलवे देखकर एलेक्सा बड़ी खुश हो गई। महफिल का हिस्सा कहो एलेक्सा ओपन बोआ फ्रॉम जीरो, फटाक से आ जाएंगे हम आपके पास।
वो तो सब ठीक है। एलेक्सा, who's your favorite actor?
Shah Rukh Khan is definitely an all-time favorite. Beyond his acting, I also love how well-read, charming and witty he is.
True love.
Alexa.
Sorry. So you see what I meant there, right? So when a lot of movies partner with a lot of different brands, and that is for a mutual benefit. Movies also want to gain top of mind, especially with that movie. It was a Diwali release. It was launching, or rather, it was being released with a couple of other movies, right? So it wanted to gain that kind of a top of mind. So it wanted to create that impact. What the makers of Zero did was that they not only went in with the biggest player in that category, which was Alexa. But they also chose this kind of a with by doing that they also chose this kind of a new format wherein you could talk to a protagonist in the movie, right? And the format was so new that it was able to create this kind of an impact. um, One of the other things that the same movie was able to do was it created a Snapchat filter, right, with a protagonist face on it, which hadn't been done before. So the merit was not in the idea of what was delivered. There were different applications that were already providing it, but just that exploration to create a different kind of a message delivery in a new format is what created that kind of impact, right? So that is the first part. The second part of it is potential to drive earned impression, which is also very important for players to raise awareness, right? So awareness is dependent on reach, but that reach doesn't need to always be own reach of you or your partner, right? You can always also aim for unowned or unpaid reach. And how could you do that? You could do that by building a partnership with a partner who allows you to beautifully create a narrative which has a kind of opportunity for it to be shared by people. So it either is such a novel or a new idea that connects with your user that they want to share, and thus the ability to drive word of mouth increases, right? uh, that and or the second part is that you can partner with another brand that has the ability to bring in what your brand values are, in coherence with what that other partner's brand values are, and thus ability to drive a message that connects emotionally with people. Because if it does not, in my view, if it does not connect emotionally with people, and if it is only a messaging around, let's say, a functional kind of a benefit, that 5 rupees off or something with a partner, then the shareability quotient will be low, and thus you will not get a lot of coverage for it. Um, let's see an example for this. Let's see what Airbnb did with Visit Sweden, and I think then you'd be able to understand this point better.
Hi, my name is Åke, and this is my home. Roughly 100 million acres of land. That is all mine. Well, I share it with 10 million other people, but I'm speaking on their behalf, so to speak. Welcome to the relaxation area. It's very spacious, to say the least. And check this out. 100,000 tempered infinity pools. This is my terrace. Custom design with panoramic floor-to-ceiling views in every direction. And this is my bathroom. Swedish minimalistic style, completely outfitted with all necessities. Last but not least, here is where the magic happens. And here. And here. And sometimes here. You see, in Sweden, we have this thing called freedom to roam. It's a right protected by the law that allows me to sleep and eat and walk pretty much wherever I want. Now you can too, because we listed the entire country on Airbnb. Welcome to my home. Welcome to Sweden.
I hope this was able to make some of the things more clear for us, because see, Visit Sweden would not have a lot of global reach, and Airbnb, while partnering with different brands, will not be able to give a lot of access to its community or user base, right? So the merit was not potentially the reach that either of the players had, right? But it was the kind of idea that they were able to come together and co-create, right? Because Visit Sweden had this beautiful idea of freedom to roam. They wanted, rather, it fitted well for them if they partnered with a brand whose brand values, met with what that kind of freedom to roam actually, was about, right? It was about a different kind of a feeling, it was a different kind of a experience altogether, and then they were able to come together and create this kind of a propositioning where for the very first time an entire country was listed on Airbnb, thereby creating that kind of beautiful narrative that travels further. And as a result, a lot of publications picked this up, and the reach was great. So it for aware from an awareness perspective, both for Visit Sweden and Airbnb, this did wonders, even though there was not a lot of paid push behind this. Cool. I'm taking a quick pause before I go on to the next section to see if there are any questions that there are. If you have any questions, because the next section I think is where a lot of insightful information is. It is where we will talk about how to influence consideration. So if there are any questions right now, happy to take them. All right. Um, I don't think there are any quick questions right now, but if you think of something, please keep them coming. I will take more pauses, and would be happy to answer anything and discuss anything with you. Cool. Sorry, this is again. All right. So the next thing is consideration. So if your kind of marketing objective is to increase consideration, then what could be great for us is to think about ways in which we can increase consideration, right? And how do we increase consideration? We know that relevance is a very important trigger, or an important factor when it comes to consideration, right? What we mean by relevance is that it is credibility, through someone that I can draw some kind of relevance from, right? So it is credibility of a from either a known source that I can connect with on at an individual level, or I look up to, right? So it is building on relevance. So this is the key difference that happens between consideration and awareness. On awareness, we talked about prioritizing reach, right? But here, even if the reach is not as great, but if there's amazing amount of relevance that your users can draw from the person or the brand that you're partnering with, then you should focus on that, because for consideration, relevance is far more important, right? Similarly, the second point is that for driving relevance, and given the today's digital ecosystem, we need to understand that there are vertical communities that have been formed in the society, right? So what are these vertical communities? These are people who are interested in different kinds of interests, passions, and have these kind of different personas, or can be also be segregated on demographical kind of awareness, right? So this is what's happening, that there are multiple vertical communities that have gotten formed, right? And for you as a brand, if you want to increase relevance, you don't need to just partner with one person that your audience connects with. You can also partner with different brands and different people by dividing these kind of vertical communities. Let's look at it at an example to understand. Let's look at a couple of examples to understand this better. Yeah. So I'll talk about Airbnb once again. When Airbnb was promoting its experience very recently, when people couldn't step out of its home, what it did was it highlighted some of the partnerships that they had built on, to to target specific vertical communities, right? So for someone who's interested in art and culture and Broadway in particular, they had interactive performance and conversation with Broadway artists that were there, right? Similarly, so someone who was extremely interested in sport could actually take an experience with an Olympian or a Paralympian, right? Or someone who wanted to understand more about different kind of areas of choice. Then they could take up an experience that celebrated pride, right? So there are different things that they could have taken. So it wasn't about that one particular. See, the other thing that you can understand here is that part around credibility, right? If you want to build something for a sports lover, and you would rather create it with someone who's into sports themselves. If you were really interested in creating something for an art lover and interested in Broadway, then you create that thing with them. So that credibility quotient is super high. An Indian example of this is, I think Myntra also has done it very well. So Myntra has these private label brands, right? And what Myntra has done here is that it is targeted these different kinds of interests, right? Or personas rather, right? With Ritik, who's famous for a very active kind of a lifestyle. They launched an active lifestyle wear product, right? For Saif, who because of his background comes and is popular for traditions, and traditional wear is something that they launched with them. So it matched very well with their persona. With Deepika, what they did was they tried to create something which was a concoction of sorts, beautiful concoctions of sorts between what the modern traditionality looks like. So they needed someone who would represent that. So essentially what Myntra did is they partnered with very kind of popular or relatable people in those special segments or those special vertical communities that would help them gain more consideration. Cool. Then second part of consideration is mapping triggers and barriers. I think this is something that is well understood, but just thinking it from perspective of how to create marketing alliances that can either help you strengthen what the triggers of your brand or the entire category are, or to leverage your partner's strength to show diversified kind of cumulative, or rather a higher cumulative strength to alleviate the barrier that you have. We will look at examples, and I think we'll understand this better again. So I'm going to play an example where Samsung and NDTV came together to create something that helped Samsung push the trigger in the mobile category very high. And all of us know that when it comes to mobile, one of the key triggers or one of the key reasons that people buy or evaluate a product is the kind of strength that the camera has on the phone, right? So the camera has become one of these key triggers when people think about you. A good camera is that kind of a trigger, right? And a lot of people are talking about that trigger. But let's see, through a content partnership that Samsung did with NDTV, how they were able to create something that was totally unique, that helped Samsung create that kind of a special distinction, and own the trigger that other brands would not be able to own, right?
All phones are currently advertised on the basis of their camera's prowess, but they haven't moved beyond selfies and great resolution. And oftentimes, their claims looked unreal and manufactured. What could we do to demonstrate that the Samsung camera is many notches above all competitors, giving confidence and pride of ownership to consumers about their Samsung phones? A real, live, untampered exhibit with professional quality output achieved through bona fide users. Partnering with NDTV Network, a leading English premium news channel, we brought a paradigm shift in journalism. In a first of its kind initiative, NDTV Network replaced its bulky cameras with Samsung smartphones using its cutting edge 4K camera technology that matched broadcast experience. We disrupted industry norms and became the breaking news.
We're replacing this, a broadcast television camera, look at that size, with this, a mobile phone.
Samsung cameras were reporting from everywhere.
We partnered up with Samsung to film our stories and our shows in 4K.
Multiple creative renditions, amplified communication, and ensured omnipresence. Proud to own Score Triple, Samsung, the most desired brand. market share increased 2 times. To top it all, Samsung featured as India's most trusted brand 2018. NDTV and Samsung making heads turn.
Cool. Like I said, I hope the example has helped us clarify, what I was trying to say better. That you can actually, partner with a brand that becomes a real user, and thereby, giving you that kind of an additional leverage that helps you, create that kind of a difference that helps you own the category, right? So we've covered trigger from perspective of mobile category, and camera being, or a good camera being, the key trigger. Let's also talk about alleviating barriers, right? Sorry, let me, yeah. So one of the key after COVID, which is a very recent kind of reality, what has happened is, for travel, one of the key barriers is, cleanliness and hygiene in the place, right? Has that place being sanitized? Is that place very clean or not, right? So that is one of the key barriers that people have in mind before, booking an accommodation right now, right? With that, what Hilton did was, and Lysol did is, which is RB, they partnered together, to create a proposition which was called Clean Stay. What it essentially did is, Hilton recognized that, a lot of people have this barrier that, the room should be clean. So they partnered with Lysol, not only to, create a program which would, detail out how Hilton would, clean its hotel rooms and lobby and the common spaces before a guest checks in, but it also trained the staff with the key people from Lysol's team. So thereby, Lysol as a brand, which is very popular, amongst that segment, for creating that kind of, good hygiene perspective, came in and, showed its strength, by lending its name. At the same point in time, what Lysol, I think, would have gained is, while people are trying to establish themselves as category leaders, by the virtue of, what they're doing in the present scenario, if a big brand like Hilton comes and partners with them and, puts enough trust in them, then, Lysol will find it slightly more easier to, say that, if Hilton can trust us, then, for a hotel room, for a great hotel room, and then probably you could also for your home, right? So this is the example of, alleviating, barriers to consideration, rather, by building on different kinds of partnerships, right? Cool. So before going on to purchase, which is the next part of the funnel, I'll just take a very quick look, because I know there have been some questions that have been posted, and try to answer them very quickly. Cool. So let me try and answer this. How to evaluate a brand alliance idea from a KPI or an ROI perspective, right? The good thing here is that, if you try and segment your kind of objective very clearly, then you're able to define that KPI to that objective. Case in point, if the objective for you is awareness, and if you created that kind of a marketing alliance with a partner to drive awareness, then your KPIs could be closely related to what the KPIs of the brand are, for general awareness led, campaigns and activities. And for some brands, it could, be very top of the funnel, kind of, getting more users onto the platform, or getting more visitors. To other brands, it could just be, let's say, an impression delivery, or getting, let's say, top of the level engagement also, right? So it will depend on, excuse me, what the objective is. So thus, thereby you can, for a brand alliance idea, you can, choose a KPI and link it, with what the marketing objective was. So I hope that answers. The other question that Venkatesh has raised is, could you please elaborate what value does Shantanu and Nikhil has in partnership with Airbnb? So again, because this was an experience-led initiative that was done when Airbnb had launched experiences in India, and we wanted to talk about how Airbnb had like really authentic experiences for people to consider choosing an Airbnb experience. We wanted to actually partner with someone, the team actually wanted to partner with someone who would have enough credibility in zone of emerging as key designers, and b who would some in a manner want to share their journey, not only from perspective of what they've achieved, but how other people who would want to build a brand, or rather understand how a couture is formed, can do so, right? So Shantanu and Nikhil's kind of value there was very crucial for Airbnb, which is like coming as these kind of thought leaders who design that experience and be that kind of very relevant kind of authority that our vertical one of our vertical communities closely related with. So thereby gaining that, helping us gain that kind of a relevance within that kind of a target segment, specific target segment, right? Cool. Uh, I'll try and also get to Shobit's question now. So Shobit has asked us, why Mintra did it more, not more to do with celeb endorsements rather than brand alliances for consideration, right? So I think the thing here is that one of the key things that we've discussed is that there needs to be enough meat in the game for all the stakeholders that have come into the partnership, right? So if that kind of a if that kind of a what do you say, if that kind of a input is there from both parties, like if both parties are equally concerned about, let's say, pushing something, then they'd only be able to drive it further, right? So if and it has to be genuine also, right? For someone for Saif, let's say, to partner with Mintra, or rather than just endorsing Mintra, will be very different, because the stakes that are involved with him are very different, right? Also, rather than it being something that only someone is lend its face to, it becomes something that goes slightly further. I think it also increases not only relevance but also authenticity when that person has some control over what goes out, right, from a product or a brand perspective. So I think that is why it would have made more sense for them to get be associated as partners and not just get brand endorsers only, which they also do. So it's not either or, it's also that both can exist. Yeah. Cool. Moving on with the session. So coming on to purchase part of the funnel, which is for purchase, we know that driving trials by incentivization is important. So even if someone is aware about what your product is, and even if they've started considering your product, but there could be a very fair chance that they've not bought your purchase because they haven't tried it yet, right? So how could you enable that kind of a trial, right? By building meaningful alliances, by, let's say, partnering with a closely related category, right, to build an opportunity of cross selling your product, right? Essentially, it is a lot of brands shy away from building brands just on price offs and discounts, right? However, we also identify and acknowledge that people need some kind of an incentivization to make that first kind of a transaction with your brand, right? So what if you were able to identify intent by partnering with a player who was there from a very closely connected category, and then create a specific offering for their for that categories or that other brands user. For example, let's say we can say, take different categories as example, right? So for example, let's say a car and an insurance provider are can be very connected. When someone's buying a car, they're likely to buy an insurance too. When someone's buying a phone, they're more likely to buy a phone accessory like a cover or a tempered class 2, right? So there are different categories that people operate in, and they could be connected, and it may present an opportunity to cross sell. But can you partner with a closely connected category, and thereby incentivize just those users who have high intent, and just create a specific propositioning for them, that in that moment when you're trying to make that transaction, if you also trial my product or purchase my product, then it would make a lot of sense, right? So that could be one of the way of driving trials, by incentivizing the user. And the second one is slightly more on the execution side, but it's still very pertinent, I feel. It is working on time bound exclusivity, which is better value for the partner and better value from the partner. What I mean is, if you as a marketer are trying to incentivize users, right, to drive trials, you can partner with different brands. But what would a brand say if that offering is already existing in the market, right? They not be as interested in it. They can be interested in that offering, but they not be as interested as if you tell them that this kind of offer or this kind of incentive is exclusively available for your users right now. Then that importance will increase, right? And what I also understand is that you may not be able to create that kind of exclusivity with one brand forever, because your objectives will keep on changing, because that other brand's objective will keep on changing. So if you can create a time bound exclusivity with your partner to drive better value, and ask and seek rather better value from your partner, then that could also really help. The second part is providing incremental value. So while both of these things I think look similar, the key difference is the changed audience, right? So the changed audience does not only care about better value for money. Of course, that's a important part, but it's also about getting more value in totality, right? So can you partner with a brand that helps you provide more value to a user by topping it up with their own benefit, with the partner's benefit? So you may be a part of a cluttered category who's operating at, let's say, low margins, and you are not able to provide an incremental kind of incentive in that category, because you already exhausted in a manner, right? But can you partner with a brand that can provide more value for your users, right? If that can happen, then that's still incremental value to the end user, right? And that still helps someone make that kind of a purchase choice. We'll understand this better with an example that's to follow. The second one is value beyond product, right? So like I said, value goes beyond product. It could be something that's connected with something that your consumer truly believes in. So it could be connected to an overall experience that the consumer is seeking, or it could also be connected to, let's say, if the consumer is slightly more evolved in terms of what their social footprint is, or what their environmental or ecological footprint is as a human, then that is also a value that they could derive from your brand, rather than only getting money based value for your brand, right, from your brand, right? So let's look at the first example. Will talk about getting more value as an ad top, like a top up value from your partner. And by top up I mean like incremental value from your partner.
रेसिपी का वीडियो खोल, स्नैक्स आज मैं बनाऊंगा।
डेटा पैक तो खत्म हो गया, वैसे भी कुरकुरे है ना,
तो स्नैक्स बनाना कैंसिल। अब तो पूरा डिनर मैं बनाऊंगा। देख, कुरकुरे के साथ 2 GB तक डेटा फ्री।
एयरटेल डेटा
चल खोल, थाई करी की रेसिपी खोल।
कुरकुरे खाओ, फ्री डेटा पाओ। डाउनलोड एयरटेल थैंक्स ऐप, एंटर द कोड और 2 GB तक एयरटेल डेटा पाओ।
बंटे, सब्जी ठीक से काट।
So you see what happened there. Kurkure did not give a price off or an incentive, but what it did was, through its partner benefit, it was able to create that kind of very strong, reason for someone who maybe doesn't differentiate as strongly between a Kurkure or a other product to pick Kurkure, because there's this incremental kind of a benefit. So if you are opposite a shelf and you find these different kind of options, if you're an Airtel user and if you want that kind of a 2 GB data right now, you could go for Kurkure. So thereby adding more value.
रेसिपी का वीडियो खोल, स्नैक
Sorry about that. Now going on to the second video, which is slightly more, cause related in a sense, wherein the value that the user gets is more emotional and not as functional in nature. Let's see this one. I'm sure a lot of you would have seen it, but just let's see it again once.
आज मैं माँ का हाथ नहीं बटा पाऊंगी, बापू का खाना भी नहीं ले जा पाऊंगी, क्योंकि मेरी जिद है आज से मैं स्कूल जाऊंगी। और स्कूल है कहाँ?
जहाँ विद्या इतने कदम बढ़ा रही है, एक कदम आप भी बढ़ रही है। बस खरीदिए इनमें से कोई भी एक पीएनजी प्रोडक्ट और उसका एक हिस्सा ईंट दर ईंट स्कूल बनाने के लिए काम आएगा। पिछले साल भी आप ही की मदद से शिक्षा ने भारत में कई स्कूल बनाए। इसी तरह योगदान देते रहिए, आखिर बढ़ेगा इंडिया।
तभी तो बढ़ेगा इंडिया।
So again, I think this was a very good example for this particular point, because I think the merit was not in getting a benefit that was that would add something to you, but it would add something to the society. So if you are a user who's worried about creating that additional kind of value by transacting with different brands, and if you want to be slightly more aware about it, is exactly what PNG did here, right? It asked users that if you buy my product, then I'm putting a small portion of that money into building schools, which is helping the society. So the value that I as a user can get goes beyond just a functional benefit, and then it's something that I deeply care of. So maybe that influences my kind of choice of buying a product from an FMC product that falls in the various categories where PNG operates, right? I don't know why these ads are playing again, sorry. Cool. And the last bit within purchase is ecosystem-led acceptance, and this is more prevalent for brands that operate in the digital ecosystem, right? Because what's happening is, and a lot of tech brands too, right? So because what's happening is, that again, it's I don't need to talk about it again. I think we've already mentioned it a couple of times that the digital ecosystem is highly connected. So if you can ensure that there's consistent accessibility of your product or service at multiple touch points, then you're able to get that ecosystem led acceptance. A small example for this would be let's say if a service provider around let's say an app that like a Netflix or an Amazon Prime Video is available on preloaded, or rather on most of the phones, let's say Samsung phones, through their partnership, then it is you don't need to make that kind of an extra effort of thinking about an app that you would want to download while you're streaming content, or about when you think about entertainment, it's already on there on your phone. So that accessibility increases the chance of purchase, because it's already available to you. All you need to do is that make that transaction. So being available consistently at multiple touch points where your users are currently transacting could be a good way of influencing purchase decision of the consumer. The second part is becoming the choice for your partner's user. This can seem a little forced, so a lot of brands may not go for it, because it depends on what that brand's voice and personality is. But some of the brands choose it. It is let me try and explain this again with an example, which is, let's say, when if you remember when Uber came in India more than a few years back now, you could either pay on Uber through cash, or you could digitally pay through Paytm. So any kind of Uber user who did not want to pay cash or had troubles paying in cash, because they'd worry about the change and all the other stuff, the only option, rather the only choice that they were left with was paying through Paytm. So again, it is related to that, in creating that kind of an ecosystem by partnering with different brands where your brand's usage is increased. So the Uber Paytm example we've already shared. The other example is when Maggie had relaunched some years back. they were exclusively bundling a package which was exclusively available on Snapdeal. So if you wanted to buy that, you'd only find it on Snapdeal. Thereby, Snapdeal became the only choice for people to buy that kind of packaging from Maggie on digital stores, right? So that was around building purchase. I'll also take a quick pause here to see if there's anything that we can answer. Any questions right now? So Siddesh has asked that, but Lays did it as well, but so was new. How would Kurkure get an edge over it? I think Siddesh, as far as I know, that they're part of Pepsi, and I think that partnership was between Pepsi and Airtel. Thereby, that kind of benefit was at a slightly more, company level than rather than only a brand level. All right. Dushyant has asked, what are the parameters to choose ally company brand for marketing alliance? I think we've discussed this a fair bit. I think again it would fall down to the different objectives that you have. Again, for consideration, if you're trying to drive relevance, then it has to be a partner that has credibility and relatability. For awareness, it has to be a partner that has more reach. For purchase, it could possibly be in a connected category who you could partner with, and get that kind of, create that kind of an added incentive. So it again depends on, the parameters depend on what you're trying to influence the most. And if there are multiple things that you're trying to influence the most, then I'd say go down to the bottom of the funnel and prioritize that, because that's slightly more difficult to influence. And if you can influence that, then I think influence the other portions in the funnel as well. Cool. Moving back onto the presentation. Cool. So this is the last part of the funnel, right? Which is linking marketing alliances with loyalty, right? So how do you create loyalty by partnering with different brands, or creating different kind of alliances, right? So this is I think there's nothing new here from the perspective of alliances actually enabling a lot of loyalty building programs, right? Especially in the airline or the hospitality category. If you see, there's a lot of brands that partner for benefits that go out of the spectrum of what their particular brand enables, right? But what I feel could be the key here is building a long term promise for your user, right? A lot of times what we see is let's say if there's a sale on an e-com platform like an Amazon or a Flipkart, then you'd see a bank partnering with them for that particular sale duration, and as soon as that sale goes off, they're off that platform. But I think while it may work well to drive that kind of a usage or drive that kind of a purchase or trial at that moment, it will not help you create that kind of loyalty, because that promise is not long term, right? So if you want to create loyalty, then you need to create a long term promise with a partner, right? It has to be a promise that you create with a partner that goes on, so that you assure your users that this promise, or this whatever benefit it is that I've combined with a partner to create, will go on, right? It will not end tomorrow, it will not end 1 month later, so you can be rest assured about that, right? So that is very important from a loyalty perspective, because we're talking about loyalty from a long term returning consumer perspective, and not just a repurchase kind of perspective, right? And the second thing is that it has to be around the amplification of the product usage, and basis what your USP is. This one's interesting because if you can create loyalty by partnering with brands that enable loyalty for you, then that is very interesting. Let's see an example that helps explain that. So for the first point, like I said, while different brands partner with Amazon, Flipkart on periodic basis, Amazon launched a card, like ICICI and Amazon Pay launched a card together, which would reward users no matter if the sale was going on or not, right? And like they say, this is a lifetime free card, no joining or annual fee. So that creates a very strong kind of proposition that if tomorrow, even if there's no sale, and I want to go on to Amazon, I would probably use my ICICI card, thereby building in the loyalty for ICICI with that card, because I get that benefit with Amazon if I'm a frequent shopper on Amazon, right? The other point, the second one was promoting my product usage, right? So what I think, Airtel has a Airtel Thanks program, which is a rewards and loyalty program that Airtel had launched a few years back. And what that program does, I think, is beautifully is it promotes one of the key features that Airtel has, which is a, a data pack that doesn't end that month, right? So you would be that data will go on until the next month as well, right? So there's accumulating data that gets added over a period of time. And within the kind of the loyalty program, if you were to see, while there's insurance cover for phone that is provided, and life insurance cover also that is provided, most of the things that you see here are linked with things that drive internet usage, which is and highlight that you can watch videos on Amazon Prime. You can hear to Wink music if you're a Airtel thanks member. And in that loyalty program, they'd also partnered with Netflix earlier for a 3 months free usage, thereby not only partnering with brands that their consumers would want to use, but also highlighting a portion of what they have communicated well. So they've communicated that your data won't end, and I will, while working on a loyalty program with different partners, I will partner with brands that will help you, use my product better, and thus, be a customer that wouldn't leave my brand now or soon, right? Cool. The next part of it is, around delivering delight. I think this is fairly easy to understand, but very difficult to execute at times. And this is around designing an experience that goes beyond, what is expected. And for some categories, what is expected could be very basic, and for some categories, what is expected could be, could be the standards of delivery or delight there could be very high. So delivering delight will, mean very two different things, but it is for that brand to understand what the expectation is from that user, and then for it to gain loyalty, gain love by providing that kind of a delight in the experience that a brand is providing, by partnering with other brands that can enable that highlighted kind of an experience, right? We have an example that talks about that will help us understand this better. Let's quickly watch it.
You got my blood holding on to you, and then I try to control it. You got my heart holding on to you.
Connect your Spotify premium account. Choose your music and it will stream in your Uber. There's a playlist for every ride. And now, the music doesn't have to end. Your ride, your music. Available on November 21st in select cities.
Awesome. I think I hope that example is helped us understand what I meant by delivering delight, because see, this example is from 6-7 years back, when Uber was still new, or maybe even like 8 years back or something. And then the role of a service like Uber was just to be a transport, like a transport provider, so just movement from point A to point B, right? If you were to take a normal cab, or even let's say an Uber back then there are a few things that you would have in control, but there were few things that you would specifically miss, right? If that is some, and if you wanted to, and one of the most known things is, I mean, related to the category is that you would want to control the kind of music that you're listening to, right? And by partnering with Spotify, what Uber was able to rather bring on was this kind of an experience which the consumers didn't know they'd have access to, but they did, right? So from an experience perspective, they would now be able to listen to their own music of their own choice, if they had a Spotify account, on their Uber rides. So this was something that would help them get delight, and not just what was expected from them, that okay, a standard kind of commute from point A to point B in a decent and happy manner without any major problems. So yeah, so thus this became a portion of delight. Cool. Cool. I am nearing the end of the session in terms of the last part, which is the key insight linked to the do's and the don'ts from the session, or from the perspective of following or pursuing marketing alliances. So let me just have a quick look at if there are any new questions, and then we can go for it. All right. Cool. So Shilka, thanks Shilka for asking the question. If I'm a weaker brand in alliances, how do I factor in the cost? Any suggestions? So I think the way that we could look at this is that it's not only about being a better brand or a slightly weaker brand than the brand that you're trying to partner with. I think it's also linked with the kind of benefit that you're able to bring on the table, right? Especially for smaller brands that may not have enough presence, but if they're able to enable an experience, or identify a very clear kind of a need gap that doesn't exist with the brand that you want to partner with, maybe that becomes the crucial kind of conversation driver for you. Or it could be linked with what the brand's need is in order to own a category driver, right? Which is your partner's brand, which is your partner's need, right? So it can again be be varying on different factors. But to answer this, what I would say is that it is good to be realistic. It is good to know that sometimes what you're offering may not only make the cut. And it is good to evaluate the same thing with maybe a couple of brands to identify that, okay, if you, let's say, partnering with a different category, which is, let's say, vegan food, and if you're a restaurant and you want to bring in, let's say, um, 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 let's say vegan sandwiches, like which you could just heat and serve, right? And and on that you just want to partner with the brand, right? Which lends your name to your brand. Then you can evaluate talking with the other players also, thereby trying to understand what kind of value it is that they are bringing on board for you versus what the other partner is bringing on board for you, and then make that choice. So if you are a weaker brand in the alliances, there are these are some of the ways that you can think about what you are doing. Think about if you were to do it with other brands, have those kind of options built in just at a discovery stage to figure out what may look like a good choice. And of course, then the other thing is it has to be built on the kind of value that you also as a brand get out of it. Does do you think it adds as much value as much it is demanded out of you in terms of any monetary compensation, or in terms of an effort or a resource perspective? If yes, then then it still could be a good kind of a bet. But if you think that there's a gap and there's no clear benefit out of it, then I'd say that maybe it's not worth it as much. Cool. This is the last, like I said, this is the last portion of the section, which is the key insights of, and what I think can help us determine, or rather differentiate between a good brand alliances with a great brand alliances. The first part is defining individual goals but with shared benefits too. So the reality is that even after you've identified what the problem is, uh, it has to be linked with the what the partner is going to gain out of it, right? See, this is again, linked to the kind of question that I was trying to answer. Individual goals are very, very important to define. So you may define what your marketing objective is, and then from there you may begin on your journey of saying that, okay, this is what the partner could look like, this is what the partnership could look like. But it is very important, while you're trying to build in that parameter of choosing a partner, very important to for you to know that, okay, what is in it for the partner, because there is a lot of good ideas that have come to a lot of people like you, me, in terms of building alliances. But some of those ideas do not see the day of the light, because while it may have enormous value for your brand, it may not have the equal reciprocal rather for the other brand. So from a very kind of a real perspective, defining individual goals is important, but define that kind of shared benefit is very important too, right? The second thing is, while you're identifying what your marketing objective is, let's say if your marketing objective is driving, let's say, consideration, right? It is not only and while working on an alliance to solve for it, it is not only important for you to know what the problem or the opportunity is in the marketing funnel, right? It is important rather to drill down deeper to understand what is the root cause that is causing that, right? So let's say if there's low consideration, right, before building an alliance that helps you increase relevance, I think it will be important for us to do some kind of research and figure out that, okay, that low consideration is a result of low relevance, or is it a low a result of low comprehension, which is not a lot of people understanding what I'm trying to give to them as a proposition, as a product? Or is it a result of lack of trust in my brand, or is it a result of something else altogether, right? So that kind of a problem identification needs to be there if you really want to create like a good kind of a meaningful marketing alliance that solves for the objective. Because if you, let's say, solved for relevance, and if the relevance was already high, then that does not make the cut, I feel. So yeah. The third point is brand value to help revitalize the brand and creating affinity for the brand. So this is one of the other things that I think we should not miss out on while we are trying to have these conversations around partnering with different brands, which is that some of the brands may not be as big right now, and you could be working for those brands, but the brand will have value to it, so there will be equity in that brand, right? Always consider that equity as a key kind of a key kind of parameter also while you're evaluating a partnership, right? If you are a brand that's loved by, let's say, a small portion, but that's popular for that specialized kind of position that you've created. Let's say if you're a luxury brand, right, and you've partnered with if you're a luxury brand, then and if you've created that kind of a space for yourself as a very luxury brand that's known for, let's say, handcrafting things, or that's known for detail, right? When you're partnering with other brand that needs to build in onto the promise of having detail or a closely looked at kind of a slow commerce kind of an angle associated with it, do value that why even though you may be a small brand, but the brand value that you may have that will help the other brand revitalize what they are trying to do is significantly high. So while having these kind of conversations, always also think about what your brand brings on the table as from the perspective of brand equity, right? and and the last bit is finding common brand values with desired competencies to form alliances that enable enriched customer experience, right? While this may seem like a lot of gyan, I have an example that I'd like to share with you. Like for whenever we are partnering with brands, I think we think objectives, and that is the way that we should be thinking, and that's what the entire discussion was all about. But if we want to really create or rather forge meaningful alliances that go beyond let's say a couple of years, and that create, if you want to create something that builds onto something that is able to strengthen itself with time, then it has to be built on common or shared brand values. There has to be a very strong kind of an association with the kind of brand that you're partnering with, right? The brand values need to be clearly linked, and and visibly so, right? Let's look at an example to understand this.
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when you're living on a dream. Everything is better when we stick together. Side by side, you and I gonna win forever. Let's party forever. We're the same, I'm like you, you're like me. We're all working in harmony. Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when you're living on a dream. Everything is awesome when you're living on a dream.
So yeah, so this is one of the examples that tells us the importance of the brand values being aligned. Lego is a brand that partners with a lot of brands, and they partnered with Shell too. I think the brand values didn't match as much at the very base level, and this is something that is created by an external third party, in an external organization, which was an NGO, to talk about the environmental kind of effects that Shell has. And by partnering with Shell, while kids are learning about Lego at a very young age, they're also getting to know about Shell in a manner. And do you want to have that kind of a strong sense in kids around a brand like that, right? So that's what could possibly go wrong if there's no kind of alignment between the kind of values that you have and versus what your partners have, right? It could always mean that it may not be something that will sustain over a period of time and create enough and more impact for more than one generation, right? Cool. Sorry. So this, in a manner, has become a kind of checklist that if it is awareness that you want to gun for, then you can prioritize reach and impact, potential to drive impressions. Similarly, if it is around consideration, then these are some of the factors. We'll try to share this somehow with all of you, so that this becomes like on our social handles or somewhere, so that you have access to these key pointers when you're considering moving some part of the brand funnel through building marketing alliances too, right? uh, Again, so that was most of the information around the session. I have a few more slides before we can end on the session, and take a few more questions towards the end. Like I said in the beginning, the program for the PBM, the Professional Brand Management program in Digital Age, which is a fantastic way to get a practitioner's perspective into how to solve real world problems, is now live. So the applications are open. If you are interested in getting to know key insights about how to solve the real world problems in today's day and age, and I mean, if you're gunning for those roles, then it would make sense for you to apply, I feel. um, for more resources, you could follow us on Instagram. Like I said, we try and share insightful content on our social channels. We'll pick in some information from this session too, and also include it on our social channels. So if you are someone who's keen about learning things, insightful marketing linked kind of uh, topics and ideas and insights, then I think it would be a good help for you to also follow us on social, on Instagram in particular. And the last thing is a request, which is to find 2 minutes of your time in sharing feedback. We would really want to improve and get better, and share more worthy content with you moving forward. And that's the endeavor. So your feedback will be very, very important for us. There's a link here that will also be provided in the comment section, so you can share feedback through the link, or you can scan the barcode, whatever works for you. But if you can take out these 2 minutes, it will be of great help. And the last part is, if there are any questions, then we can answer them now. So, Amog, thanks for asking, Amog. Amog has asked us, what was the problem with the Lego ad? And maybe it wasn't very clear. So let me try and rephrase what I meant with that ad was, while the partnership with Lego and Shell had been going on for a while, so it was a good kind of partnership in that way. The problem was that their brand values, so that was one of the insights, that your brand values need to be aligned, right? If they are not aligned, they should not be contrasting, right? So when you're trying to figure a way to partner with different brands, maybe you should partner with brands where there's some alignment with your brand value. So tomorrow it doesn't seem like something that you've just done for a transactional benefit, but as a marketer, because you're trying to build your brands as well, or over a period of time, and it will continue to evolve. So instead of only looking at the short term gain that you will get on business, also think about the long term benefit that you could drive as a marketer by creating a strong benefit that stands for its values and its mission, right? So it has to be linked. I think the thought behind that is that it has to be linked with what your brand is trying to say, rather than, so for a short term benefit, do not sacrifice on something that doesn't go well with the kind of value that your brand wants to offer to the user. And by value, I mean from a very emotional lens, right? I hope that answers. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through some of the other things here. If there's a question that I can answer, just give me a minute more. I think more or less we've covered most of the questions here. Sorry, there's one more question that has just come up, so we'll try and answer that, and then we'll go maybe end the session. So, any top of mind marketing alliance which, according to you, proved to be an extremely breakthrough strategy and could achieve significant result in terms of awareness or gaining market share, right? I'll just read that question again just to be sure that I answer that correctly. Any top of mind. Yeah, sure. So there's one that is very recent in my mind, Vinisha, which is what Airbnb. So I sorry, I know I've missed out introducing myself in the beginning. I will now. My name is Shivang Sethiya. It seems very strange to do it at the very end, but I'm Shivang. I used to work with Airbnb for 8.5 years before joining Kraftshala as a senior manager in training, which has happened like a couple of months back. So one of the examples here that is right now very top of mind for you is for me is what Airbnb has done with Gauri and Shahrukh, which is Gauri and Shahrukh Khan have a home in New Delhi that they first bought, and Airbnb has been able to get that home listed for one night, and it is basically an open kind of a contest where people could apply by answering a simple question around what an open arms welcome means to you, and they could get a chance to stay in Shahrukh's and Gauri's Delhi home, which has been specifically designed by Gauri Khan and was done in association with Gauri Khan Designs, because Gauri Khan Designs of course has refurnished that kind of a home and included a lot of personal touches around the family. So if there's a Bollywood freak out there who would want to gain a slight kind of an insight into what a life in their day could look like, or what are some things, the ways of their doing their things, then they could uh, sign up for that experience. So yeah, that's one which is very top of mind because of the recency effect. All right, awesome. So thank you so much everyone for attending this session and giving me your time. I hope like I said, I hope I've been able to add some value, some knowledge with this session, and I hope I've been able to answer some of the questions that you've asked me. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, and we'll hopefully be in touch soon if you join us for the next session on next Tuesday. Thank you.